Hey, what's up guys? In today's video we want to share information about the hottest topic for E46 M3 owners, and that is the installation of 4.10 shorter gear ratio final drive for differential. So we got here one brand new 4.10 final drive for E46 M3. We have our gear ratio swap kit, which includes all parts necessary for the successful installation and gear ratio change. And we got ourselves a differential from E46 M3. This is from this car, and we're going to use this one to demonstrate how to swap 3.64, which is current OEM setup, to 4.10. So putting this one on the table, it will be good to have someone to help you because it's super heavy, as you can see. And beginning the disassembly procedure. Let the oil drain well. You can this to help it, and leave it like this for a couple of minutes. Once you drained your differential, you can continue with the disassembly. Next and following step is to remove the side flanges using a lever. Socket 13 to release the side cap bolts. Someone before us already marked the left and the right shim. And in your case now, since you are doing a gear ratio swap, you won't be able to avoid backlash adjustments, but it is crucial to measure and remember the overall thickness of side shims, because overall thickness and the carrier preload will remain unchanged. So you don't have to adjust that, just the gear position and carrier position with different size of shims, but the overall thickness will stay unchanged. So measure carefully and remember the overall thickness of side shims. Moving on to the next step. When you disassemble the differential and you have it on the table like this, you need to remove the old final drive. So remove the crown gear from the differential and remove the pinion gear from the differential housing. So we're gonna show you how to do that now. For this nut you need 12 angled with a thin wall socket 32, and for this you need regular socket 19 for crown gear bolts. Here's the crown gear. You won't be needing this anymore as you're putting a new one. And to release the pinion now. And now return the nut, a few circles, and ready for the hydro press. And now it's time to show you what parts are needed to complete this job successfully. We have everything here in the box in the RacingDiffs gear ratio swap kit. It is available on our website for all BMW differential sizes. And you have here first the kit with adjustment shim set. So the adjustment shims for the backlash and the gear position in different thicknesses. You have this crush ring gear, crush sleeve shim, sorry. And you have oil seal, and you have large pinion bearing. To explain all parts a bit better, you know what is this for. This is a brand new bearing to put on the pinion gear. Like this. We will show you how to press that later. And you have here a shim for crush sleeve. So just a second. When you have a used crush sleeve, you won't be able to reuse it again because it is already crushed to a certain dimension. But if you have this shim, you first put shim and then used crush sleeve on top of it, so you gained additional thickness to reuse this already used crush sleeve. This is excellent choice. We tested it in our shop many times and works great. It's even easier to tighten the pinion properly on the proper preload with this shim than with a new crush sleeve. So who already done this knows what I'm talking about. So this is a great solution. And at the very end you have these shims for adjustment in different thicknesses, so you can fine adjust position of the crown gear, and you can fine adjust the preload on the side bearings, but in this video you don't need to do that as we are only swapping the gear ratio. You don't need to worry if you don't have any sophisticated tools and sophisticated hydro press, as we're going to show you now how to put this crown gear with a vise. Center the holes as well as you can. Put the gear and the diff in the vise like this and start tightening. On the other side, try to fit a bolt. If it doesn't reach, then try the side you already put in the vise. And that's it. You have the crown gear fitted on the differential, and now to put rest of the bolts in. Make sure you use a thread locker, and the torque spec on these bolts is 120 Newton meters with a thread locker, or 140 without a thread locker. And time to put the bearing on the new pinion shaft, and don't forget to lubricate this surface so it can come down easily and smoothly. And now time for the hydro press. Before you put the new pinion shaft inside the housing, you need to change bearing cone as well. So right here you have old bearing cone pressed in. You need to remove it. To do that as easy as possible, we made ourselves a little special tool. Now we're going to show you. You don't have to buy it from us. It's just a simple piece of metal, radially cut, 75mm radius, and flatten on the each side so you can get roughly 60, 62, 65, it's no matter. So that's the special tool. You put it inside the bearing cone like this, so the movement will be inside to pass the bearing cone and then straighten it up, and you will have a surface to press with the hydro press to remove the bearing cone without touching the seal and without touching the small pinion bearing. So it goes like this, side, and here you see, if you can see with the camera, you have the surface to press down the bearing cone. So this is what came out, the old bearing cone. Don't momentarily throw it in the trash because you can use it to press in the new bearing cone. We're going to show you how, so no need for special tools. And you have pinion depth adjustment shim. There are many different opinions on this matter. Would you need to change the thickness of the pinion adjustment shim, pinion depth adjustment shim? From our experience, we can simplify the things and tell you that in 98% of cases you don't need to change the pinion thickness adjustment shim, because if you use the original BMW gear ratio final drive end, you can adjust 99% of the gear pattern, backlash and everything with adjustment shims and with moving the carrier position towards the right or towards the left. So start using the original thickness, the original pinion depth shim. If you're in only 1% of cases that you cannot find the proper backlash and the proper gear pattern, then you will need to adjust the thickness, to change thickness of the pinion depth adjustment shim. That's the story for another video, and to follow the steps further. And the preparations for the final pressing in of the pinion shaft. Use some grease for this surface, for the oil seal, and from the inner splines as well. Make sure the oil does not leak. If you mess up the bearing, then you have, remember, in our set, spare one. Or if you have oil leaks and visually it doesn't look so good, then you have spare one in our gear swap set. Moving on, don't forget to put the shim and the crush sleeve housing like this. Take a pinion shaft and make sure you hold as long as you can crush sleeve, because it will slip down. So like this. Try to find the splines in the flange to match them, and now you're ready to press it on the press. Make sure you check the free play so you don't press it too much. And that's it. Now it's time to tighten the pinion and to adjust the pinion preload, which is a bit tricky. So tighten the nut, input nut, until you lose this free play. When you lose this free play, you can see it right here. When you lose this free play, it is time to measure. Until that, just tighten to lose it. Once you lost the free play between input flange and the housing, it is time to measure the torque resistance of the pinion gear. To do that, you need a torque wrench, which is measuring from 0 to 5 Newton meters only, so it needs to be very precise. Put it like this and spin one circle and measure the torque resistance. Value that you need to get is between 0.8 and 1 Newton meter without a carrier unit inside. So we're measuring only the preload, the torque resistance of the pinion gear. So 0.8 to 1 Newton meter. Until you get the wanted value, repeat the tightening of the pinion nut again and again and again until you get something between 0.8 and 1. Do small steps, don't tighten it too much, because if you go over 1 Newton meter, you will have to dismantle everything again, put a new crush sleeve inside, press the pinion again, and do the procedure all over again. So you don't want that. You definitely do not want that, because it will eat you 2 hours of work at least. So small steps, 10 degrees measuring, 10 degrees measuring, and all over again. If the nut won't move anymore, don't be afraid to use a long lever like this to get it going. Like this. Small movements, step by step. And now we reach the point to adjust the backlash correctly and the gear patch. To use that, we need adjustment shim set. To avoid setting up the preload on the side bearings on the carrier unit, since this carrier unit was originally fitted in this housing, which means you do not need to adjust preload on this carrier again, as the factory already did this job. Measure left and the right factory adjustment shim to get the overall shim thickness. So we have here 1.65 and 1.75, total thickness 3.4 millimeters. So whatever you do on this differential, as long as you have this carrier unit in this housing, do not change 3.4 millimeter overall thickness of the side shims. So we're gonna start with the factory shims to see if we are lucky. I think we won't be, but we need some starting point. So assembling everything as it was with the factory shims to check whether we have to move the carrier unit left or right. As you can see, the backlash is a bit less than 0.1 millimeter, so 1/10 of a millimeter. What is acceptable for this size of differential is between 1/10 and 0.12 millimeter. So we're gonna now check with the contact paste, contact compound, to check the gear patch, and with that to decide whether if we are going to move the gear towards the pinion or off the pinion. So stay with us. I don't know if you guys can check this on camera, but I will explain as best as I can. So this is the throttle side of the gear, on the tooth, throttle side, coast side. On the throttle side, we can say that we are pretty much good, but on the coast side, patch is a little bit moved towards this ending, the inside of the gear. So what we're going to do now basically is to increase the backlash by moving the gear off the pinion gear. With a bit increased backlash, we will get movement of the gear patch from this side of the gear to the outer side of the gear where we wanted it to be. So how to move the carrier unit, we already explained in our previous videos how to move and what to get, what to expect. To move the gear or carrier unit completely on the left side of the pinion gear, you use thicker shim on the left side and thinner shim on the right side. So nothing complicated, just pay attention that you do not change the overall thickness of those shims. So now we're going to move carrier unit on the left. We are going to do that by putting thinner shim on this side and equally thicker shim on this side. So moving carrier to the left, putting thicker shim on the left, thinner on the right. Moving carrier units to the right, you put thinner shim on the right and a thicker shim on the left. So follow our next step. So after our second attempt, we checked with patch compound, we checked the patch, and I'm pretty happy what we got here. So the gear patch is centered, perfectly centered on the throttle right here, and on the coast we managed to get the patch from inside of the gear a little bit towards the center. So now it's centered and we are happy with the result. This differential is perfectly capable to hit the track, to hit the roads from this point on. So, to summarize what we show you in this video, if you have too small backlash and the gear patch moving towards the center of the crown gear, then you need to increase backlash and move the crown gear away from the pinion. If you have opposite situation, if you have the gear patch towards the outer side of the crown gear and too big backlash, you need to move carrier units towards the pinion on the right side. How to do that, I will explain once again. When you determine the overall thickness of the side shims, you don't want to change it anymore because that influences on the bearing preload on the carrier unit. So don't change that. If you want, let's say, to move towards the left, so crown gear away from the pinion, you need to put thinner shim on the right side and the thicker shim on the left side. If you want the opposite situation to happen, to move the crown gear towards the pinion on the right side, then you put here thinner shim to allow the cap to penetrate further in the housing, and you put thicker shim to stop the cap penetrating further to the housing, and this way you will move towards the right and towards the pinion. So I hope you guys understood what we tried to demonstrate here. I hope we encouraged you to try the differential jobs by yourself, to change the gear ratios, to change the clutch plates, to experiment with your differential in order to get the perfect results on the racetrack and on the streets and whatever competition you want to participate in, because the differential is really important thing of the car. And hope this tutorial was clear. If you have any other questions whatsoever, we are available for you. Write us email. Email is in the description. Follow us on the Facebook and Instagram. Check our website. We have many other sets. Besides the gear ratio sets, we have performance clutches available, we have bearings, oil seals, basically all parts needed to complete your differential job, whatever it is. And we are available for you, for your questions. Help us our community grow by subscribing to our channel, like, share, and write us a comment. Hope you enjoyed, and see you guys in the next video.